The agents that list property in high volume, they know something that you don't. They need to follow a very scripted, purposeful, and intentional listing presentation that leads to an end result. And they convert at higher levels. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to share with you the exact listing presentation or format that I utilized that allowed me to list over 100 homes a year and do that for 10 years in a row, do 2,000 transactions in my career, with 80% of that business being listings sold. This video is an episode that's a part of a series that we call the Agent Roadmap series. Agents come to me all the time and say, hey, Aaron, it would be really helpful or useful if you could give me kind of like a roadmap on how to, get started in the business, let's say from 0 to 25, and then continue to ramp up and scale. And this is the first season of that series that we call the foundation, from 0 to 25 deals. If you want to learn more specifically about what to say and how to say it, we have playlists on the channel that are live role plays that you can listen. You can also jump into the school community where we have scripts and dialogues. I give you portions of online courses for free. And we also have a role play group that you can jump in. This episode of the season we call Foundation is on the listing presentation. And the reason why I included it in the foundation is because a lot of agents are unclear on where to stack time on top of. So they end up working with buyers and stuff. And then what they recognize as time progresses is that the buy side, there's just a lot of friction there. Buyers usually take a lot more time, to help them purchase a home. And with also some of the changes that we see happening in the industry, I see buy side commissions becoming variable. So meaning they're market dependent. And, there's downward pressure there where, buy side commission, there's compressions. So I see them continuing to go down a little bit by 20, 30%. So for the time issue, for the compensation issue, what they recognize later on in their careers that listing property in high volume is really the way. Then they have to go back and try to learn that skill. So, it holds true. These little cliches, sometimes they're cheesy, but they're cliches for a reason, which is, if you can't list, you can't last, sort of thing. And if you spend time doing things that are easy, over time, your life becomes hard. But if you do things that are hard, your life becomes easy. So that's why we're including it in the foundation, because it's a foundational skill, which is, the actual listing presentation. What my intention here today to do is to give you some mental maps, some ways of thinking about the listing presentation. And the first is this idea that it's a play that you run. So if you watch sports, whether it's football or basketball or soccer, they run plays, right? And the purpose of running a play is that it leads to a specific outcome, which is a goal or a touchdown or, a base scored, right? And the same is true in other professions. Let's say somebody who's a surgeon, they have a particular checklist or a standard operating procedure, right? A play that they run in order to lead to the outcome, which is that a successful surgery. And the same is thing for pilots, right? Same is true, where they have a play that they run or a checklist that they follow, right? A particular approach that they do each and every time without exception. And the reason they do that is because it dramatically increases the probability that everybody on the plane will get to their destination safely, right? And the same is true for the listing presentation. So you want to think about it as a play to be run. And we run it every single time. Not when we feel like it, not when we think it's appropriate, not when we feel comfortable doing it. We do it each and every time because the process is more important than the outcome, because the process leads to the outcome. Okay. So first key kind of mental map that I want to give you is that it's a system that you follow each and every time. And the reason you follow it is because it dramatically increases the probability that you'll get a contract signed at the end, right? Now, the next thing I can share with you about the listing presentation is what not to do. Because I've had the good fortune of working with agents for an extended period of time and all various different degrees of production. I've kind of witnessed some behaviors that agents deploy and don't get good outcomes, but they keep doing them. Okay. So the first is like wing it. People go out there and there's like, I don't know, like we'll see what happens. And what's interesting about that to me is that it's rather immature from a business perspective, because these conversations can be worth $10, $15, $20, $30,000. And if you think about it, if you have any dependents or people that are dependent on you, or you're dependent on, the money to be able to feed your family or yourself, right? Pay for housing, transportation, food, and insurance. To wing these appointments is ridiculous. I mean, it's foolish, right? It's wild. It's outlandish. So don't do that. Don't wing it. Treat this like a profession. Go pro, learn the play, and run it every time. The second thing that I would suggest to you not to do is to rely solely on your personality as your business strategy for getting more listing agreements signed. You're not that cool. Not everybody likes you. I'm not saying don't be, not personable or friendly or professional. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is don't make it your main business strategy for getting listing agreements signed. Instead, follow a proven, consistent plan, an approach, or play that works because you've received it from somebody who've utilized it consistently over an extended period of time, and they produce the outcome that you want to produce consistently. They've also taught it to others, and they've also got the outcome, right? And rely on that as your main strategy for getting listing agreements signed, and then layer on top of it being personable, professional, friendly. The next thing is making sure that you're pre-qualifying each and every appointment that you go on, because going on listing appointments that are not fully qualified, nothing will deter you, will cause you frustration, doubt, fear, worry about your decision to become an agent than going on unqualified appointments. So making sure that you're clearing the room by room, right? Motivation, time, decision makers. There's channels on videos on the channel that show you specifically how to do that pre-qualifying. You can also, again, jump in the school community, get pre-qualification scripts, join the role play groups and practice that skill. And then the other is to do like pop buys, and to go with no paperwork. If you're going to spend time, if I'm going to spend time away from my family, my children, away from things I could be doing or other, kind of hobbies I could be engaging in, or, other things that I could be doing with my time to go on a listing appointment, I'm going there for one specific reason, which is to do business. So don't go on listing appointments that aren't fully pre-qualified. Don't go on listing appointments where you're not bringing paperwork with you. It's just a pop by for you to take a look at the property. Don't do that. Now, the third thing that I want to stress to you right now, making sure that you really understand how valuable this skill is and how important it is to do a formal, canned, systematized listing presentation each and every time the same way. And there's some numbers that we can look to show the difference and how huge it is for agents. So the Association of Realtors did a survey where they surveyed a bunch of agents, and they wanted to figure out like conversion ratios, right? So the average agent across the United States will go on 100 listing appointments and take only 20 listings. I mean, that's just sad, a 20% conversion ratio, okay? And that's wild, right? That if you're going to spend all of your time, energy, effort, resource, think about all the gas, driving back and forth, or electricity for your car if you have a hybrid or, an electric vehicle. Think about all the time, energy, effort, and resources for just a 20% conversion ratio. Where me personally, from deploying this canned, intentional, purposeful listing presentation that leads to a specific destination, which is a contract signed, and doing it the same way each and every time, my conversion ratio is 80 to 85%. So meaning if I go on 100 listing presentations, I would take like 80 to 85. If they take 20, and let's say 15 sell, and they're just winging it, they're doing pop buys with no paperwork, they're relying on their personality, they're not pre-qualifying appointments fully, they're taking 20 out of 100. When I go on appointments, I would take, let's say 85. So if they take 20, 15 sell of those 20, they make $150,000 if the average commission is 10,000. If I go on 100 and I take 85, let's say 70 of them sell, the average commission $10,000, I make $700,000. That is a gargantuan difference in compensation and income. The question is why? Well, the answer is skill. And the other answer is following a specific, canned, purposeful, scripted listing presentation that leads to an outcome more often than not. Now, I know that those ratios can kind of sound a little wild or outrageous, and you may be thinking, man, like he could do that. I can't. Well, here's what's true. I taught it to Jose. If you check out the channel, you've seen him on the channel. I've worked with him for over 10 years now. I taught him everything I knew on how to list property in high volume, taught him this presentation. He's been the #1 listing agent in Ventura County for 7 years in a row. I've taught it to others. It can be equally as true for you. You just have to utilize the process and be consistent and deploy it each and every time, right? So the issue usually isn't that we don't know. The issue is we don't do what we know. We decide to do it our own way, or, hey, these are past clients, so I don't need to follow this process. And that's kind of wild. Imagine being a physician and saying like, hey, this is my son or daughter, so I don't need to follow the checklist. That's foolish. The last thing that I wanted to share with you is that there's 3 different segments of this listing presentation. The first segment is from the time you touch the door till the time you start to talk about price. And the purpose and goal in that segment is, again, we're going to do a bunch of assumptive closing and trial closes during that time frame. Most people say no 7 times before they say yes, right? So I want to get them all out of the way. Most of you guys don't ask for the business till you get to the end. That's a problem. I want to close 5 or 6 times from the time we hit the door till the time we start to talk about price. The next stage in the listing presentation is the actual pricing portion of the listing presentation. What we're doing there is we're not presenting from a place of authority like I know and you don't. Like I study homes and prices every day, therefore I assume you listen to me to price causes to sell, like that sort of thing. The reason we're not doing that is because authority is the lowest form of influence. It's also presenting that way is built for a different time. It's built for a time when agents had a complete monopoly on data or information, right? Where nobody had any access to any information about what homes sold for or what was active on the market or anything. So presenting with authority was effective and efficient. Well, now that everybody has access to that information and access to all of the data and refresh it every day, before they call you as an agent to come over, presenting in that way is not in alignment with the world that we live in today. So instead, the pricing portion of the presentation is very specific and concise with regards to setting the frame for the price conversation. We're doing that in a way it's collaborative. We're doing that in a way that helps them to self-discover. We're positioning ourselves as a guide to help them to solve their problems. If you do that right, eventually they'll say to you, hey, what do you think we should do? And then the last portion of the listing presentation is handling objections and closing. Now, handling objections and closing is different than presenting. Presenting, you present with emotion. You handle objections with logic. Okay, and handling objections is actually different than closing. They're different skill sets, right? So there is a kind of pattern on how to handle objections where I'm not like agreeing, but I'm acknowledging what they said, then I'm handling it, and then we get into a closing sequence. And also what I'm aware of is when it comes time to close, that's just, if I've done my job appropriately and I've done all the trial closes up front, we're already on the 7th or 8th close. They may have like 1 or 2 objections, and then I just need to ask for the business. And closing is one of those skill sets that really dramatically raise your conversion ratio. Because what I know to be true is that once you leave, if you don't have that listing agreement signed, the probability that you'll get it signed drops by probably 50% as soon as you walk out the door. Because now you're leaving it open for other people to tell them about their buyers in Venezuela and their magical marketing program. And oftentimes people, might buy that, and or providing people the opportunity to present, maybe undercut you in terms of professional fee, and they decide to list with somebody else instead. So closing is critical and super important. So, the goal and objective in this video and the foundation is, again, to get you clarity on how to think about the listing presentation, give you the overall format of the actual presentation, impress upon you how important it is to execute on it each and every time without exception, not when you feel like it, not when you think it's appropriate, but every single time. Understand that process is more important than outcome. And to learn the actual presentation itself, go to the playlist series that's here, where I actually go through the actual presentation and each one of these stages of the presentation in much greater detail. And if you want to take it even a step further, jump into the school community. It's free. There's versions of our online classes that I have that are in 23 countries and 8 languages that are free to you. You also get that role play group. If you like this series, hit the like and subscribe button, share it with somebody that you think it would be helpful with. Hit that little bell so that way you'll get notified when the next episode comes out. And I look forward to seeing you then.